We're here to talk about oats. And I'm sure you've all heard that phrase, feeling his oats, which is a phrase that has passed into the English language. It came originally from the horse world. The thing about oats is that they are a grain that is commonly fed to horses and is probably the best of the grains to choose if you are feeding horses. And there's a number of reasons for that. The most important thing to understand about oats is that they have a very high fiber content. The shell, the outer husk of the oat seed is fibrous and it's slippery. The oats do not clump together. They slide one over the other so that they flow and they make like a semi-liquid. And this physicality is very important for the GI tract of the horse. The oats flow along the tract. They're not sticking together in clumps, causing impactions. So oats are in many ways the safest of the grains that you feed horses. The other thing about oats is that they can grow in more marginal land. You don't need the same quality of soil. You don't need the same length of growing season for oats that you do for, say, wheat. Barley is intermediate between the two. So oats would grow in more northern areas. In the United States, most of the oats we feed are grown in Canada. In Europe, they are grown in the northern countries where the growing season's too short to grow wheat successfully and barely long enough to grow barley. They can grow oats. And the oats can be harvested, obviously. Now, humans eat oats as well as horses. We eat oats in the form of oatmeal. And when we eat oatmeal, the seed hull has been removed. So remember, if you are feeding horses, don't give them oatmeal. Oatmeal's for people. It's whole oats for horses. The oat itself, the grain of the oat, can be treated physically in several different ways. It can be cut. It can be what we call crimped or cut oats. It can be rolled flat through rollers. It can be rolled flat and cut. It can be passed through microwaves, like a microwave oven with a conveyor belt. So it's what we call micronization, so that it's popped like popcorn, it's cooked. And it puffs and it splits a seed coat. It can be steamed and then rolled. So you have steamed rolled oats, micronized oats, rolled and crimped oats, whole oats. That is the sequence. The whole oats being the least digestible, the seed coat is intact, all the way to the steamed rolled oats are the most digestible because the seed coat is broken open and damaged so that the enzymes can get access. The thing to remember is that just as enzymes can get access to that oat, so can bacteria and mold. So whole oats store much better than steamed, crimped, rolled. And the more they're treated, the more you shorten the storage time. So that if you are harvested your oats and you've got them sitting in a giant hopper, ready for the winter feeding, you don't treat them, you leave them intact and you treat them as you get it out of the hopper ready to feed to the animals. So in the old days, a farm would have an oat hopper, and at the base of the oat hopper would be a machine that had two rollers, and they would literally pass the oats through the rollers, grinding them as they went. And you would make rolled oats, and you would do a day's or a week's supply at a time. Some poor lucky person would have to stand there and actually rotate. The old rollers were done by hand and they were not very effective. We have modern day rollers now, are electric of course, and they are much tighter and stronger. Most farms did not have any means of cooking the oats. They could only mechanically treat them, as in cut them or grind or roll them. It's big feed companies that can micronize or steam the oats. But oats are, in terms of their nutritional quality, they are a little bit lower in gluten, or they have next to no gluten in them. So that makes them very useful for not clumping together in the GI tract. They have the same protein content, pretty much the same mineral and vitamin content as wheat and barley. But they do have this lower gluten content. Gluten is the quality in the wheat that it's a protein and it makes the bread stretchy. When you make wheat flour into bread, you're depending on that gluten to be the stretchy ability of the wheat to form a solid mass. Oats don't do that. You can use oat flour to make bread or cakes, but it doesn't have that stretchy quality that the wheat flour has. Sometimes they're combined together to get the flavor for the oats and the stretchiness from the wheat, but that's not relevant to horse nutrition. On horses, oats are very useful, and the phrase feeling his oats stems from the fact that despite their high fiber content, oats have a very high energy content. And if you gave a horse a feed of oats, the horse would feel more energetic. He would be bouncing on his toes as he came out, and therefore more willing to work and could work longer and harder. And so the phrase feeling his oats meant anything that was excited or jumpy or full of energy was feeling their oats. The other phrase that the English had, of course, being the English, that oats were a grain that in Scotland is fed to men and in England is fed to horses, which is a nice racist piece of history for you. But anyway, so oats, they're grown in northern climates. They're a good grain for short summers. You plant the oats in the late fall and they overwinter in the ground, and then they come up in the spring. So in parts of the world where the snow sits on the ground for long periods of time, oats were the ideal thing to plant because they were cold hardy. They could stand up to the cold. And they didn't take as many sunshine days or sunshine hours to come to maturity and develop into a seed. So oats, very popular with horse feeding because of the safety issue. They used to be that they were cheaper, but nowadays they're very expensive because, of course, they use so much in human nutrition, and anytime people eat something, it becomes more valuable. But anyway, that's oats for you. Always a good thing to know what the grains are that you're giving your horse.